All right, come on in, everybody. Welcome back to the Holler, tnholler.com, at the TN Holler on Twitter, Facebook. We're also on TikTok now. Check us out there. And we have all these hollers hollering all across Tennessee. Thanks to your support. We really do appreciate it. Your small dollar monthly donations keep us going. Make it $10 a month or more and get one of these sweet, sweet holler hats. And also, as always, a shout out to Elisa Parker. If you're buying or selling in Middle Tennessee, do it through her. And if you need a lawyer, Abby Rubenfeld is a rock star. And if you need some jewelry, Kristen, AJ Martin in Nashville is not your grandmother's jewelry store. All right. Thank you to all of them for being supportive of us. It really does keep us going, help us do what we do. And today we're going to talk about something that has been in the news the last 48 hours, something really tough to stomach. And it centers around Vanderbilt Medical Center and an email that they sent out to patients who are receiving gender-affirming care that I think you probably have heard about it by now. It has now made the rounds throughout all of the media locally. But I'm just going to tell you kind of how we came across it, and then I'll introduce our guest today. But on, I think it was Tuesday night, an email went out to basically everybody who is receiving gender-affirming care. This was a screenshot of the email that we got in our inbox. And at first, honestly, we were like, that can't be real because it was so ridiculous. It's saying that Vanderbilt has provided a copy of medical records, including yours, to the Attorney General in response to a civil investigation, with the assurance records would remain confidential. And then it says that we regret that we did this, but we did it. So that was the email that we got on Tuesday night. We posted it, we shared it. We got a bunch of emails from trans Tennesseans and family members of theirs that this had happened. And again, it said that it had already happened, not that the Attorney General is asking for it. It said that they had already done it. So too late, we did it. We turned it over to Jonathan Scrimetti. And one of the people who got one of those emails is here to join us now, Kristen Chapman. She has been on local reports talking about her feelings about this situation, and we appreciate that she's here with us right now. Kristen, how are you today? Thanks for joining us.
Well, I am not less angry, but otherwise I'm okay. Thank you for having me.
Right. Well, so let's talk about that. Can you talk about the experience of receiving that email and what your thoughts were when you got it?
Yeah, I got a message through the app on Tuesday night, and I didn't check it because I have 3 kids and we get notifications all the time, and I have a lot on my plate. So I decided to not check it. And then I saw your tweet on Wednesday morning. And that was actually how I was alerted to check the message. And so when I checked the message, obviously I was horrified. And the more reporting that has come out about what was the width of information, the breadth of information that they are requesting, the story gets worse and worse. And for me, my child and I have had such a strong relationship with Vanderbilt Health for so many years. They were our anchor in a rough sea, helping us navigate care for our child. And it really does feel like a betrayal by a friend, right? It's worse than I expect the Republicans in this state to make their hatred of my family known. I do not expect my kid's doctor to turn us over without even so much as a word.
It's
It's
really horrible
horrible.
when you put it that way. It's so shocking and horrific. Have you had any communication with your doctor since this happened?
No, because now I don't feel comfortable communicating with that doctor anymore. And again, I'm not blaming the individual doctors. I do not believe that the doctors made these decisions. I believe this was a legal move, um, and a terrible PR move for Vanderbilt, to be honest with you. Um, but yeah, I don't feel like that I expected it to come from this from here. And it's been like especially painful. And again, the more that comes out, the more unsafe I'm feeling in this state.
Right, which sadly is probably the goal of the people
Yes.
that are behind all this, and you're not alone. I mean, we've received a number of messages from people that we've posted screenshots of anonymously saying that, "I'm terrified. They're not going after kids. I've lived here most of my life. I can't afford to move." Not that going after kids is any better, but, it just shows that the breadth of what they're doing. Another person says they're terrified. These are the messages that we've been getting in our inbox ever since, as this story has taken hold. The Tennessean now wrote about it, talking about, as you said, turning over patient records in the Attorney General probe. The AP says, has an article about it. And like you said, it's actually, they gave more information than they initially implied. They gave names, they gave communications, information about doctors, basically all the hopes and dreams of the transphobic people out there have been fulfilled now that there's essentially a list in the hands of AG Jonathan Skrmetti, which, I don't know if people are familiar with Skrmetti, but he has not been shy about being pretty nakedly partisan, especially about his feelings. He was at a event with Gino Bolso, who's one of the most anti-trans representatives in the legislature, at an event titled "We Know What a Woman Is" recently, as Representative John Ray Clemens pointed out. So even though they say that they've been assured that AG Skrmetti is going to keep this information confidential, how do you feel about that promise? Does that feel like something you can count on?
No, absolutely not. When you are not a faithful actor, when you engage in purely partisan hate speech against a targeted community, you are not acting on behalf of all Tennesseans. And to act as if we're being hysterical is an additional slap in the face. This has been a sustained effort by a group of people, many of which are not from this state, who have parachuted in here and whipped up hate against a community that is so struggles so much already. And to act as if you are an impartial actor and that your word can be believed. If you want to be trusted, then you have to act in a trustworthy way.
I think that's really well said. What can you tell us about your experience with Vandy before then, and about with the care that your child received? How has that impacted your lives, your child's life? What was the
Literally a
experience?
lifeline. Like, I mean, I'm not being hyperbolic when I say that when I took my kid to get care initially at Vandy in late 2020, um, we were terrified that our child might not live another year. Like, it was mentally, school performance had dropped. Like, our kid was in trouble and came out to us during the pandemic as trans. And, we knew that it wasn't a simple process to get treatment. So we started that process. It took almost a year to get the treatment to begin with. To even be allowed to get treatment. So once we went through all of that with our doctor, and even just like 3 weeks ago, I took my child into to get her final puberty blocker shot before we leave the state. And the doctor herself said, like, this is a different kid than walked into me 3 years ago. My kid is confident. She will talk your ear off. Now that she feels closer to who she is, she is a different person. And people who know my family know that that's the case. But the doctors at Vanderbilt were absolutely instrumental in us helping save our child. And so I feel deep gratitude towards the doctors themselves and the people that work at the clinic, because I know the death threats and issues that they went through over the last couple of years because of some of these bad actors coming in. Um, and I felt the need to protect Vanderbilt. You know, as I talk to the media, I haven't mentioned Vanderbilt as our care provider because I didn't want to subject them to any further abuse, but they didn't blink to subject my family to more abuse. And that is so painful.
Right, and that seems to be something that we're hearing from a lot of people. Chris Sanders of the Tennessee Equality Project, he was quoted as saying that people are just basically upset that they didn't fight harder to keep this from
Yeah.
happening. Sanders said many people are upset Vanderbilt did not fight harder to prevent turning over patient information. He said others are concerned over the implications for other politically charged issues such as abortion, whether the AG could obtain reproductive health care information, which is absolutely something people should be concerned about. You know, don't wait until it affects you. Get upset when it affects others also. I just want to ask you, you mentioned the bad actors that are at the root of all this. I think I'm not going to mention names, but I think we all know kind of
Right.
who you're talking about. Um, when those people say that they're protecting children, how does that make you feel?
Well, I mean, just like these are the same people that say they believe in small government. These are the same people that say they believe in family values. They are literally ripping my family apart. Part of my family can't leave the state, and part of us can. And, you know, they are literally involving themselves in the most intimate things that you have in your life, which is your medical files. Um, So I know not to believe anything that is said from the Republican Party in this state, because they typically mean the opposite of what they're actually just projecting what they do. Um, this is my experience as a Tennessean for the last 36 years, right? Like, it's they will say they will call it something just to whip up their base. Um, but in reality, they are harming my family every single day for the last 2 years. It has caused immeasurable problems for our, not just our community, but the larger LGBTQ AI community, right? Like, it wasn't just trans people that were targeted in this Vanderbilt mess. It was like even wider than that, right? And I know that I'm not the only family that I know that's leaving the state. And a lot of those families don't have trans kids. They're just gay and they don't feel safe here anymore. And that breaks my heart.
When you say you're leaving the state, you mean you're moving out of Tennessee?
Yeah, we have to, because my child needs a shot in August and I can't get it here. And even if I had decided, like some other families that I know, to stay and just travel out of state to get care, after the last 2 days, I would not stay here. There is absolutely no way that I could stay here knowing that these dangerous transphobes have literally doxed my family through Vanderbilt. That's the way it feels to me. And I don't feel safe here. I don't feel like my family is safe here. I don't feel like members of my extended gay and lesbian family are safe here. That's just how I'm feeling now.
I'm so sorry to hear that. I totally understand. I'm not going to say I understand what you're going through, but it's an understandable feeling to have from the outside looking in. Debbie says you're a wonderful mother, Kristen, and fighting for your child like that, absolutely. The thing that I always say, and again, I don't know what you're going through. I don't know what your child is going through, but it's just so brave to know the world is going to treat you like this, and to still wake up and say,
And
I
fight
need
for
to
it.
and fight for it and be myself. And I'm going to do this, even though I know what the
What it
world is
costs.
going, what it costs, right? And what I face coming back at me from these people who say they're trying to protect me. And so I just want to at least say that to you, that, you and your daughter are extremely brave for facing this. And so I guess I would ask, we've had, trans people on here, relatives on here, and I'm always interested, where were you on all of this before you were told by your child that they were trans? And how, when you got that news, like, what was that like?
Well, I'm fairly unusual Tennessean in that my kids grew up going to Pride, and I have teenagers now. And in my friend group, I have trans folks. So trans people were known to my kids well before this became a personal thing for my family. And so my kid actually sent me an email to come out as trans, which I thought was hilarious. Like, she had just turned 13. She sent me an email. She was upstairs. I was downstairs. It was during the lockdown. And it was just one word: I'm trans, right? And that was it. It wasn't a big deal in that, yes, we had conversations about it. But we kind of have always let her take the lead in how she wants to go forward. It took her a little bit of a time to find the name that she wanted to call herself, and to get, more comfortable asking people to use the correct pronouns. So it's just been this really long process. And even though I like to say this because I know that I'm unusual in that trans people have been a wonderful part of my life for 15, 20 years. Um, but I also know that, there are many, many, many people in Tennessee, families like mine, who know no other trans people, or who are living in extremely hostile places in small communities, or even here in Nashville in hostile areas. And while I got you here, I just want to like shout out the other families and the trans folks here in Tennessee who are speaking up, even though it comes at great danger to you. um, it does matter what we do right now, because never in the history of humans has putting people on a list ever ended well.
So true. What are you going to do now? I know that there's talk of lawsuits. Uh, I know that groups like ACLU and uh, Out Memphis and Planned Parenthood, Tennessee Equality Project are basically telling people to contact them so that they can help them file official complaints, HIPAA complaints. What's the next step for
Well, I
you?
reached out. I've been a volunteer at Tennessee Equality Project for a little over a decade. So I know Chris fairly well, and I reached out to him yesterday and just kind of said, point me to whoever's doing whatever, right? Like, if we're filing complaints, let's file complaints. Count me in. I'm kind of in a strange position in that I've got about 5 weeks left in the state. My last day at work was this week. I'm in that position where a lot of people don't have the freedom to speak that I do right now. And so that's why I feel like, I really want to encourage people, if they don't want to speak out publicly, please reach out to one of these organizations so that you can be at least connected to the legal response, because not everyone needs to be in front of a camera, or can be. And um, you still should not be alone dealing with this. We are stronger when we lean into each other. And so I just want to say to I know that this is psychologically extremely difficult for people, because I'm feeling it. My kids are feeling it. It's very tough right now. So I just encourage people to not suffer alone. And if you are in a community where you don't have a lot of support, find one of these organizations and get in contact with people who can at least tell you you're a good mother, because I can guarantee you I get 10 messages a day about not being a good mother. And I need to hear from the people in this state that are not transphobic. I need to hear from the people in this state that care about this. And I know that other people need to hear from you too.
Well, I think that's very important for people to hear, and absolutely sticking together in this time is extremely important. Just as a final thing here, we reached out to Vanderbilt for an interview, didn't get one. Obviously, they referred us to their statement, and their CEO is Jeff Balzer, and their statement at the top there says they received requests from the AG and he has legal authority in an investigation to require they provide complete copies. So they were obligated and did so. A lot of people that we've talked to said they didn't necessarily have to just comply. They could have fought it. They could have made a court order it. They could have put up more of a fight than they did. But then the thing that drew my eye when we looked up Balzer on his website, on the website, in the first sentence, they brag about expanding patient visits to nearly 3 million and net revenues growing it
Mm,
from 2 billion to 6 billion. So it just shows kind of where the priorities are in this medical system and this healthcare system, that, they're just thinking about how are we going to impact our own bottom line? How do we grow our revenues? Where's the money in all this? And the humanity seems to be lost. So I guess I would ask you, what's your message to Vandy right now?
well, I would say this message goes to Vandy and also to Target and all the other corporate entities that claim to be allies of ours and then run hightail to the woods when there's any kind of threat. Like if this is the absolute, I would say to Vanderbilt, just from a sheer public relations perspective, this is the absolute worst way to handle it because you get back from the transphobes. Now you've lost the people who believed in you as well. And if you cater to bigots, you're gonna lose decent people. Period.
That's really
Can't
good. All
slap a
right. Well,
rainbow on it and make it better. You cannot.
right. Absolutely. Yeah. They're kind of, pissing everybody off when they cater. And it's just bullying. You can't
It
appease
is.
bullies. They'll always want more. They'll always push for more. They'll always, you know, try to get another inch. So the only way to deal with it is to stand up to it. And we just haven't seen
Yes.
enough courage, corporate courage. We haven't seen enough leadership in the community from voices that matter. Vandy's certainly a big voice in Tennessee and Nashville, and for them to cave this quickly, the message that it sends to the business community, to the rest of the state, is a really dangerous and scary one. And
Yes,
that's
it
why,
is.
like you say, it's really important to stand up to this right now. So, Kristen, I appreciate you speaking out. Anything else you want to let people know before we go?
I have a GoFundMe if you'd like to help my family get out of the state. We'd really appreciate your help. If you can't help financially and you just want to send me a sweet message, Lord, I need that. So bring that on too.
All right, cool. Well, send us your GoFundMe, and I appreciate you coming on here and talking, Kristen. Send our best to your daughter.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So that is Kristen Chapman, a parent of somebody who just got one of those messages from Vandy, who really caved to extremists and the AG by turning over the patient records to the AG in this probe. And, as Chris said from the Tennessee Quality Project, the real shame of it is that they didn't put up a fight. They just turned it over. And then on the night of Juneteenth, sent an email saying, "Hey, we already did this. Sorry about that. Wish we didn't have to, but we did." And that's not how you fight. That's not how you stand up to this stuff. And that should scare everybody, especially people in this state. Even if you're not trans or related to someone who is, what that means for what they could then do to, medical records for women and reproductive rights and so on and so forth. The precedent that's being set here is a dangerous and scary one. And to ask trans people in Tennessee and their families to trust that this AG, Jonathan Skrmetti, who has been nakedly partisan on a number of occasions and clearly, shares the same opinions about trans folks as Governor Lee and the extremist Tennessee supermajority, you can't ask them to just trust that. And so the fact that they're now feigning surprise that there's a quote unquote media circus and a backlash to what they did, basically saying they didn't even think Vandy should have told families that this happened. It's just insane. So we're in a really scary time. And, these families and trans folks in Tennessee are now feeling like they can't even be here without being afraid for their own lives. And that's a terrible place for anybody to be in this country. So, we'll keep shining a light on this stuff. Definitely help out Kristen if you can. Yes, the fascist tentacle creep is happening. Yeah, absolutely. These aren't too strong of words. Uh, Jennifer Sheridan says, please contact your legislators and voice your outrage. Vanderbilt should have fought back, but this started with Governor Lee. Fight back and vote. Absolutely right. And Christine says, haha, trust them, right? They show us every day what they are. Yeah, I mean, we are in a state where this kind of thing is in charge. They are being led by the most extreme elements of their party, the most extreme elements, the loudest voices. They don't stand up to it. This started with that rally. I'm not even going to use the word that they use, but the rally that Marsha Blackburn showed up at. And I remember when that rally happened, I was there in Nashville. They came out of the Capitol. It was right outside the Capitol. They brought official flags and put them at the podium outside the Capitol. And they held the rally with the guy whose name I'm not going to name and Marsha, and they used official state flags at that podium outside on the plaza at that transphobic rally. So they claim that they're protecting kids. They're not protecting kids. You just watch that interview, that's a genuine mother who's taking care of her child. And that's who should be in charge of her child's healthcare, not, Marsha Blackburn and the extremists. So that's where we are. Vote out Blackburn, Debbie says, absolutely. And, I'm sure we haven't heard the last of the story. There will be lawsuits, but, it's just important to really understand what's happening here. And we'll keep an eye on this story. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.